It is Friday, and first at 5, a new approach to tackling the fentanyl epidemic, with law enforcement in the Rose City saying it is now using all available laws to get dealers off the street. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Laurel Porter. Mike Benner spoke to an officer who recently arrested a suspected drug dealer. But Mike, it wasn't for dealing or manufacturing drugs?
Or even possession, Laurel. Officer Eli Arnold arrested this guy for practicing medicine without a license. How wild is that? Well, sometimes these drug dealers don't have enough drugs on them to get arrested, so officers have to think outside the box to get them off the streets.
Meet Officer Eli Arnold. He's been with the Portland Police Bureau for about 6 years, the last 2 on the Central Bike Squad.
I primarily deal with street-level crime, which includes a lot of drug use, drug dealing, and the associated crime.
Officer Arnold was on the prowl for that on June 14th, near the corner of Southwest 9th and Morrison, when he says he spotted a guy, later identified as John Baker Jr., dealing drugs. So Officer Arnold approached him.
Just appeared to be one of these sort of low-level dealers, and had a little bit of drugs, but not a ton, and not really any money, and he had a story.
Officer Arnold says Baker told him he was dealing drugs to people who needed them to battle withdrawals. In other words, Baker was acting as a doctor. Problem is,
He told me he had not been to medical school and didn't have any prescription writing authority.
taking into account the small amount of drugs Baker had on him, just 2.1 grams of meth and 2 fentanyl pills, according to court documents, Officer Arnold arrested Baker for practicing medicine without a license.
He didn't have all of the markers we see a lot with a regular delivery case. And so I thought, this is a great opportunity to try this out and explore the charge.
Believe it or not, this sort of charging tactic is not unheard of. In fact, since the start of the year, the Multnomah County DA has prosecuted more than a half dozen people for trademark counterfeiting. These are people who stamped fake OxyContin pills laced with fentanyl with M30, ultimately infringing on the trademark of Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals.
I personally find it really just offensive, the selling fentanyl for $4 or something to a guy who's dying on the sidewalk.
And perhaps that explains why Officer Arnold is getting creative when it
Be
comes
safe
to
out here,
cleaning
okay?
up the streets. In this most recent case, arresting a suspected drug dealer for practicing medicine without a license.
I'll consult with the DA's office and see how they feel we should move forward with it. But it's something I'll keep my mind open to in the future.
All right, you heard Officer Arnold there mention consulting with the DA's office. They actually sent us a statement in regards to Officer Arnold's case, saying that it's important to use all available laws to prosecute people who are peddling dangerous drugs like fentanyl on our streets. Back to you.
Certainly a huge problem that needs creative solutions. Thank you, Mike.
All right, right now we are tracking some thunderstorms moving through our area. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri, what are you watching, Joe?
Yeah, well, I'm glad Mike Benner can come downstairs from the KGW weather deck, because we are starting to see some thunderstorms move in through parts of the metro area. I just kind of looked outside our window here in the weather center. We are seeing some light showers, and these are quick moving showers, but nonetheless, still, there could be producing some breezy conditions, some hail, and some thunderstorms as well. And that's what we're seeing in parts of southwest Washington. Over in University Park along North Lombard Street, you're starting to see some heavier showers. Again, start to see some of those raindrops move into downtown Portland. The big cell I'm paying attention to is near Salmon Creek. So if you're near downtown Vancouver and parts of Orchards over the next 20 to 35 minutes, you could be looking at some the potential for some severe weather with those thunderstorms moving in. And we're also seeing them through parts of central Oregon and over into the foothills of the Washington Cascades. This is expected to kind of stick around here over the next couple of hours. Even the foothills near Sandy and Welch's, there's a chance to see them move in over there as well. Right now, though, we're seeing a temperature of 79 degrees. As we look toward the northeast side of Portland, we have some dark clouds out there. And again, the threat of thunderstorms will stick around anywhere from between now and about 8 o'clock this evening. You can kind of see that green color on your screen. That is the section of the state stretches through parts of really much of the Pacific Northwest that could be seeing some thunderstorms develop here the next couple of hours, mixed in with some windy conditions, heavy downpours, and some hail as well. As we go into the first weekend of summer, though, we're going to be looking at some relatively calm conditions. Tomorrow morning, waking up to morning cloud cover, followed by afternoon sunshine by, I'd say, 10:30, 11 o'clock. But again, the threat of thunderstorm activity will still be in the forecast. forecast over the next couple of days throughout the central and eastern side of the state. That includes Bend and Redmond, and especially along I-84. I'll break it all down for you, and plus your weekend forecast coming up in about 10 minutes from now.
Appreciate you keeping an eye on things. Thank you, Joe. Let's head to Northeast Portland now, where one person has died following a shooting and car crash in the Hollywood district. Police say when they responded around 2:30 this morning to Northeast Broadway and Cesar Chavez, they found a vehicle that had crashed into a pole. The driver was dead, the passenger injured. Both had suffered gunshot wounds. The victim was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. No arrests have been made.
If you make minimum wage in Oregon, get ready for a raise. It's coming July 1st. But how much will it really help you pay the rent? Tim Gordon's here to talk about that. And Tim, it's going up 70 cents an hour.
Laurel, it is, but Oregon's got a little more complex system than most states. There are 3 levels of minimum wage here, depending upon where you live. And in all 3 levels, the minimum is going up 70 cents. So here's how it breaks down across the state. First, the current rates of pay. $12.50 an hour in rural Oregon, $13.50 an hour considered the standard rate, and then the Portland metro area at a minimum of $14.75 an hour. In July, everyone goes up that 70 cents, so it will go to $13.20, $14.20, and in the Portland metro up to $15.45 an hour. We went down to Selwood to check in with people about this. We found a couple of baristas who work for minimum wage plus tips. They say anything would help.
I'm excited with the cost of living and everything going up. I know with like summer prices tend to go up a lot too, so it'll definitely be nice to have a little extra money in the paycheck for sure. Yeah.
70 cents could make a difference in a day, but
Over
time, it'll be nice, definitely.
Tip your baristas, folks. All right, now here's the thing. State data shows only 1 in 20 Oregonians make minimum wage, and a recent study shows that Oregon renters must make $29.72 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. That's about $7 an hour more than the average Oregon renter makes. So it is tough, and for those folks like our baristas try to make ends meet, means moving in with others, several others, possibly getting help from family if they can, and hoping to see their wages increase more in the future. Again, tip those baristas, right, David?
Every little bit helps. Thank you, Tim. Well, new at 5, a Multnomah County judge has ordered OHSU to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for concealing video and not complying with public records requests. Animal rights organization PETA sued them over video that researchers say shows rodents being given large amounts of alcohol in tests that deal with infidelity. Thomas Schultz has more.
This month, Multnomah County Circuit Courts ordered OHSU to pay more than $430,000 to PETA after not abiding to public records requests. In 2017, OHSU published this report, in which PETA officials say prairie voles ingested the equivalent of 15 bottles of wine. Soon after, PETA filed public records requests for footage of these experiments.
Drop them into shoeboxes to watch them fight, watch them attack each other, watch them try to escape.
But OHSU didn't comply to records requests. Instead, court documents show the university said it couldn't produce records because the VA hospital had them. But when PETA asked the VA for records, officials told them OHSU lead researchers destroyed the videos.
OHSU came back and sprung into action saying, oh, these videos no longer exist. We don't have them.
Smith says it wasn't until just before the trial began that PETA found out this footage existed.
This case really exposed OHSU's deep contempt for public accountability in a ton of ways.
OHSU claims the experiments were to study the effects of alcohol in male prairie voles. In a statement on the lawsuit, OHSU says the university takes seriously their obligation to comply with Oregon record laws. They say the university has a long history of responding to public records requests in a timely manner. But PETA officials say that didn't happen. Some footage shows male and female prairie voles paired together. Females are tethered to the wall.
PETA eventually learned through litigation that the experimenters made a conscious decision that they didn't want these videos to fall into the wrong hands.
In a statement, OHSU says its research is monitored by the USDA, who visits campus at least once a year to inspect the animals, facilities, and food supply. But PETA says in this $2 million experiment, all 150 voles died in the process. Thomas Schultz, KGW News.
We are less than 2 hours away until a planned 5-day strike involving about 1,800 Providence nurses and clinicians comes to an end. Starting tomorrow, the plan is for them to be back on the job. Altogether, about 1,800 nurses and clinicians are on strike. That includes about 1,300 at Providence Portland, another 100 or so at Seaside, and about 400 hospice care workers. To make up for those striking nurses, Providence brought in just under 500 replacement nurses. During this strike, Providence says services have remained open for the most part. Nurses out on the picket line say they want a better contract with higher wages in line with other hospitals. Providence had previously offered nurses a 12% raise in the first year of the contract and smaller raises in later years.
I think the strike has been very disruptive and emotional and expensive for all parties involved. And I think it's important that we come back together and really look at a fair and reasonable contract.
Providence sent nurses an email before the strike saying if nurses went on strike, the next offer would not be, quote, nearly as lucrative as the package they walked away from. The strike ends tonight at 7. Nurses return to work tomorrow morning at 7.